Hey everybody, it's Brandon Lake, and I'm here with my dad, Mac Lake, and we thought it'd be really special to bring you a podcast talking about family, life, leadership, creativity, and much more. Welcome to Generational Leadership.
One of the things I admire about you is your leadership, the way you lead your family, your kids. I've been in rooms with you where, like pre-service, and I watch you lead your team. I have been walking down the hall with you where you introduce me to somebody on your team, and you always elevate that individual. And I'm proud of the way you lead. You lead with skill, but you also lead with spirit. And I admire that about you. And so I'm just curious, tell me about your leadership journey. Obviously, I know much of it, but there are parts I don't know. So tell me about your leadership journey. How did you grow into a leader?
Wow. Well, thank you for saying that. I mean, most of it I've picked up from you, you know? I mean, you've modeled it so well. And I was jokingly going to say, well, I just want people around me to like me, so I just elevate them, you know?
But hey, I'm glad you give me credit. I don't feel like I should take any credit for anything. I know I tried to help you as a leader when you were young, because I would say, hey, Brandon, if you read this Andy Stanley book, Next Generation Leader, I'll give you $20. Hey, Brandon, if you read this John Maxwell book, I'll give you $20. If you read this, I'll give you $20.
Did I do it ever?
I was telling a 10-year-old kid this story the other day, Matt's son, Joseph. I was telling him this story. I said, Joseph, you know how much Brandon made over those few years? He went, how much? I said, 0. He didn't make a penny. And I would tell you again and again, leaders are readers. Leaders are readers. And I couldn't get you to read for anything.
Yeah. Well, we turned that from leaders are readers into leaders are learners. I like learning.
There you go.
I don't want to do it through reading.
Podcast.
You know, it's funny actually, but that is, if I really pay attention to how I learn, it's with people. Like it's being around people. And that is the leadership. If you summarize, why am I the leader I am today? It's people. I mean, and that's why discipleship is so important. Spending time with people, rubbing shoulders with greatness. And, you know, it's like, that's who's made me who I am today. It's been growing up around you and hearing John Maxwell in the car. And that was audible. So that was better than me reading. At least I was like hearing stuff. And but then it's also like who I have served, you know. I think to be a great leader, like you really have to figure out how to be a great servant. It's what a leader is, what a shepherd is. It's a servant. And I think God has given me so many incredible opportunities to be under great leaders that it's almost been caught more than taught, you know? I think that's really important too, that not only should we feed from multiple sources, like read the book, listen to the podcast, you know, do all the things, like listen to those sermons, like study it. But like, there's nothing like catching it. When you mention walking through the halls and introducing you and elevating people, I do that only because I've seen you do that. There is not a single room that you won't walk in and ask people questions and find out their story a little bit more, and then like praise them on certain stuff. Like, man, that took a lot to like go through that, and man, what like you really make people see the best about themselves and elevate them. And I think that's so beautiful. And who doesn't want to hear about themselves, the good parts about themselves, you know? And man, people will follow you when you do that too, you know, like, and because then that makes them become a better version of themselves, you know, but I think that, you know, my leadership journey has, I've picked up different things from different people. You know, I remember being here at Seacoast, and they pulled me on staff at, 17 or 18? 18. And pretty quickly into that, they gave me the college ministry to run with when it came to worship. And I had the pastor over the college ministry, which was called The Well, he had also been my pastor during my like high school years. And so we had such an amazing relationship. And if I'm honest, he's the guy who I called when I was too afraid to tell you what I did.
Yeah.
Ernest Smith.
Yeah.
He's who I call and be like, hey, I messed up, And he was that. And he shaped me and he pulled the best out of me. And he just let me run with this college ministry when it came to worship. And I was so like fresh and just cut my teeth and had no idea what I was doing. But I was so passionate. Maybe almost too passionate. I was fiery, so fiery. And he just let me run with it. And he would ask me what I was dreaming about and what was going well at other places and what songs did I love, and just he let me go, And he let me build a team and bring my friends in, And he was the one who was teaching me how to have those conversations with them when kind of stuff hit the fan and. Like, gosh, my team's falling apart. Like, how do I have these conversations? How do I keep them accountable? Like, all these things I'm just brand new to. All I knew was worship music, but I didn't know how to lead people. Yeah. And he helped me put a team together. And then he helped me learn how to lead a room, And there's so much of worship leadership I learned through having that playground and having a place to fail. And it'd be okay, Yeah. And so he really shaped me. I remember he'd always say, he'd really encourage me to create wow moments each night, whether with people or in the experience, to create wow moments. And it's like you taught me, like, how do I, in everything that I do, how do I make it 1% better every time,
right.
Yeah. And that really shaped me. And that he pushed me to continue to be a learner and to grow. And then I think about when I left Seacoast and I went to Life Point Church. There was a season where I knew God. It felt like I had kind of hit a ceiling, and I knew God had to get me out to get me some things. And we call my 4 years in Virginia my college experience, my college ministry.
You didn't go to college. But
I didn't go to college. No, for anybody listening, I did not go to college. I did go to college for 3 months, and I think I went to the mall more days that was across the street than I actually went to school. But I go there, and they slapped the title worship pastor on my job. I wasn't ordained or anything. This could get controversial, but I remember asking Josh Lazar was my boss, and I was like, "Hey, man, I don't think I should go by worship pastor. I'm not a pastor." And he's like, "No, that's what we're going to call you. That's your title. It's because that's how you're operating in this position. You're pastoring people." And he's like, "What do you think a pastor is?" And I was like, and in different words, I basically said the person that has all the right answers, Or he said, you probably think it's this. And he's like, "Man, I think a pastor is somebody who's just available, like available." I remember thinking, and our pastor is so much more than that, right? But he's like, "Man, I think what you can be in this season is be available to people." He's like, "You're good with people. You know how to connect with them. Like, you're lovable. Like, you just need to like point them to Jesus. Like, be available, listen to them, and point them to Jesus." And I was like, "Okay, I can do that,
Yeah.
And not only in that season did he pull me higher and help me understand really what a leader was, a shepherd was. I learned so many like really practical, characteristics of a great leader, someone who's disciplined, and like, how do I maintain a schedule, put a schedule together? How do I be on time? How do I take notes? Like a good leader takes notes, like leans in, gets there early, sits close, so many different things that I had. It was like here at Seacoast in those early years, I was just like wild and trying anything and everything, having fun. And then in those, my Life Point experiences, like really where I learned to be professional, like professionalism and how to really carry myself. And so Josh really pulled out a better version of me in that season.
Yeah. Josh is a remarkable leader. There's a story I tell every church I go to when I'm doing the leadership pipeline training, I tell the Josh Lazar story.
Yeah.
And so you were on staff up there. They invited me to come up and do a leadership training with the staff. And I was there over a weekend. So you guys were in, I think, 2 high schools at this point.
Yeah.
You had to be there at like 4 a.m.
Oh, it was miserable.
Yeah. Tractor trailers pull up to both schools, unload, set up this entire, I don't know what IMAG means, but IMAG, technology and computers and all this.
Fiber optic cables that we were syncing the campuses together, unreal.
Crazy. And Josh was over the worship area. He wasn't the worship leader, but he was over all the creative and stuff at that point. And so I was there that weekend, and that Sunday morning, Josh said, hey, why don't you follow me around?
Yeah.
I said, okay. And I'm thinking, follow you around? Dude, you're responsible for this whole thing, the weekend experience, and you sure are awful relaxed right now. I'm thinking this.
Yeah.
And we're walking up down the halls. He's drinking his coffee, and service starts. And he's walking me in, open up doors, showing me all these videos and TVs and all this equipment. And we go through the entire service. He and I just chat, and he's drinking his coffee. Service ends. He said, hey, come back here with me. So we go backstage. There's about 25 people in black shirts. And he looks at me, leans against the back wall and goes, watch this. Just drinking his coffee. And this lady stands up and she said, all right, everybody, great job. And she tells a story about some lady that was at the first service, and it's her first time ever to church, and she was just broken and crying. And she said, here's what we did well, what were some of the misses, and did some hits and misses. Here's what we need to adjust, blah, 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 blah. And I was going, wow, this is impressive. Yeah. And then he looked at me and said, all volunteers.
Yeah.
And I love telling worship pastors that story.
Yeah.
Because we think we have to be the chief doer versus the chief developer. And Josh was the chief developer.
Wow.
He developed people to do the work of the ministry. And so I tell staff members all the time, your job on Sunday morning is walk around and drink coffee.
Yeah.
And let the saints do the work of the ministry and empower leaders around you.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal leader.
Yeah.
I'm glad. I love that you learned.
He would say often, don't say people's no for them, Yeah. We have this idea, like, before we ask, that people don't want to be involved. They don't want to do it, or it's too much.
Yeah.
And so we say they're no for him. We never make the ask. And he's like, man, make the ask. And that's what he did. And he assembled an army, because not only, he knew how much they would come alive getting their hands on the net and being a part of something bigger than themselves.
Yeah, you're so right. I'm seeing this. Again, every church I'm working with, they're scared to ask people. Well, people are so busy. They have young children. They're in travel ball. All these excuses, so they're not even asking. And I go, we don't have enough leaders. I was studying the call of Matthew, the call of Levi the other day, who's also named Matthew. And I was studying that passage. And it's pretty fascinating, because Jesus had moved to Capernaum. He'd been living in Capernaum, where Matthew lived. Mm-hmm. Jesus had been living there about 4 or 5 months. He had done some miracles. Popularity was growing. Capernaum had 1,500 people. Yeah. That's how many people lived there. And it's right on the Sea of Galilee. And so Matthew is a tax collector. He was a port tax collector, which is the worst type of tax collector. If you're a land tax collector, you are, you're charging people tax for their property, for their livestock, all that sort of, it's standard percentages. But he's on the docks, where people from all around the Sea of Galilee and people from other countries are bringing in their goods. He can tax them whatever he wants. Right. This guy's making bank. And Capernaum was the number one out of 14, 15 ports on the Sea of Galilee. They were the number one port. So he's tax collector, raking in a bunch of money, and rabbis said of tax collectors that they were worse than robbers and thieves. They were excommunicated from the synagogue. These guys were bad, and he was the worst of the worst. He was a poor tax collector. So take that. You got this guy who is disqualified from any religious standing whatsoever. Right. And Jesus has been in town. He's been hearing, Matthew's hearing the stories. And one day Jesus approaches him at Matthew's point of greatest vulnerability at the tax booth and says, follow me.
Follow me.
Follow me.
Hmm.
And Matthew did. It says he left everything and followed him. We think people disqualify themselves for a whole host of reasons.
Wow.
But Jesus did not allow Matthew to disqualify himself. He thought, I'm unforgivable. But here's what's crazy. If you look at that passage, it says, after this, Jesus went down and approached him. After what? It was after the 4 men lowered the paralytic through the roof. And what did Jesus say to the paralytic? He said, your sins are forgiven.
Yeah.
That happened literally maybe 100 yards from Matthew's tax booth. Word would have spread very quickly. This crazy healing rabbi just forgave somebody. That doesn't happen. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
Matthew heard that story and thought, perhaps I could be forgiven too.
Whoa.
So here's what God's doing. God's doing a work in this man's life.
Wow.
Jesus makes the ask. God's doing work in people's lives, calling them to step into leadership. But if we don't have the guts to make the ask, how are they going to have the opportunity to step into the calling?
Yeah.
And so that one drives me crazy. I think if we're praying, God's going to put somebody on our heart that's going to cause us to approach them and say, I see something in you. I want to ask you to pray about such and such. Because when you make an invitation, it forces them into a conversation. And now it forces them into conversation with God.
Yeah.
God, do you want me to do this? So you always approach them and say, would you pray about stepping into this leadership?
Yeah.
Forces them into a conversation where they have to deal with God on that.
Yeah, that's so
good. Let them say it. And sometimes God tells them no.
Yeah, right. I think there's other fears around bringing people along with you and raising up leaders. You know, a fear of, Josh, talking about using Josh's story, he had to be okay with the job not being done as good as he would have done it, potentially.
Yeah.
And there's the fear, of it won't get done or it won't get done right. And if you don't ever extend that opportunity, that invitation, then you're never going to ever see anybody underneath your leadership rise above where you're at and make it even better, And I want to be the kind of leader that people stand on my shoulders. Yeah. And it might be that they're first by my ankles, but I want to, and like, you have to be okay with them failing and them. Yeah. I think that in some ways there's people I'm standing on their shoulders. But at first they had to put up with a lot of me figuring it out. Yeah. Yeah. And we have conversations often now where they're just so proud of where I am, and I'm saying, man, thank you. I would never be here if it wasn't for you giving me a shot. Yeah. And I think a lot of people are maybe even afraid of that. People becoming better than them and taking their position. We say it all the time in ministry. Your job is to work yourself out of your job. I don't see many people doing that. It's just more comfortable and safe and like keeping your job and keeping people a bit lower than you instead of raising up people to where you're like, yo, I remember one point in my leadership where I can actually say I positioned somebody to do a job way better than me. There's probably been other, but like it was so evident, and I had to step out. I was leading all these campuses, and other things were going on in my life where I just didn't have all this time. And luckily, I saw it months out, and I'm like, I can't do one-on-ones with 13 campuses with all these opportunities. And we felt the grace to go and say yes and travel and to start leading worship elsewhere and taking these opportunities. And I was like, I can't stay in this role. And I noticed somebody on my team that was so good with people. And so over the next few months, I remember I would have him do a little bit more of the team meetings. And then I'd say, hey, why don't you take over these 2 one-on-ones? And then he'd start meeting with them, the campuses that were closer to his campus. Yeah. And then baby steps, right? Started to hand that over little by little. And then, man, by the time he just took my job, it was like everyone had already been going to him. Like everyone had already been looking to him. He was thriving. He came alive. Honestly, if that had never happened, we would have lost him because he was such a great leader. Yeah. And I think that's something too, is like if you never give people the opportunity, you're going to lose them.
Oh, you're going to lose them.
You're going to lose them. And man, I can share that from personal testimony. Like there's been times where I think, and hopefully this doesn't come across like cocky or anything, but like, people have lost me because I'm bored. I'm a creative.
Right.
Like, I want to, and I'm driven, I'm hungry. And so, if I'm only given so much, at some point I'm going to look elsewhere, and so that's, bleh.
Failure is incredible fertilizer for development.
Yeah.
But if we're intimidated by other people's failure, we're not going to give them the freedom to lead.
Yeah.
And I love that you're bringing this up, because I think so many people in ministry find their identity in their ministry. So I remember when I first started preaching, it was at Polly's Island. And, I would preach maybe once a month. And preaching was my passion back then, So I wanted to do it well, and I poured everything into it. And so I get up there on a Sunday morning and I would preach my heart out. And as I would preach, I'm scanning the audience, I'm looking at who's responding.
Yeah.
I'm looking for the people that are taking notes, the people that are smiling,
Lord,
and all that.
anyone, please.
Anybody, please. Yeah. If somebody was sleeping, it would kill me.
Yeah.
But as soon as church ended, I would casually walk over to those that were smiling, because I knew who my dealers were.
Wow.
Like, hey, can you give me some approval? Hey man, how you doing today? Because I know they're going to look at me and go, hey, that was a great sermon today. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I knew the people who would give me what I needed.
Dang.
Because my identity was so tied into my ministry.
Wow.
And here's what I've discovered. And that's a battle. I mean, it's such a battle, because we find value in it.
Yeah.
But when my identity is so deeply tied to my ministry, then all of a sudden I become a consumer of my ministry. I need my ministry to fuel my identity.
Dangerous.
It's a dangerous place to be. And if that's the case, if I need my ministry to fuel my identity, I will never let anybody else touch it.
Yeah.
I will never let it develop anybody else to do it, because I find my value in that place and doing that thing. It's a scary place to be.
Well, one of the valuable, sorry, let me say that again. Well, one of the moments of my life where I've seen that play out, I would not be here today, doing records and traveling the nation, if it wasn't for my pastor here at Seacoast. And he has modeled that for me better than anyone else. I call it like leading open-handed.
Yeah.
And he's never been threatened by what I've got going on and what God's doing in my life. In fact, he's championed it, and he's breathed on it, and he's like, whatever you need. He's like, we love what God's doing with you right now. Not only did he invest in me before all this stuff happened, but now that there are a whole lot of things that I'm doing that don't have the title Seacoast on them. It's not a Seacoast thing, it's a kingdom thing, or it's a branded thing. He counts it as a win for the church. Like he's like, man, you're a son of the house, like we love you and we just want God's best for you. And he's never been threatened by it, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for him. And he has made so much space for me to grow. And here's the beautiful thing about it, and he's smart, because he knows when I go outside and I travel the country, I learn things. And where am I coming home to? Where am I bringing those lessons? Where am I bringing that gold? I'm bringing it back home. I'm like, and so we have conversations when I get back from traveling, and I'm leading with Elevation, and I'm out with Maverick City, and I'm having all these experiences. And that's one thing that I've had to do too, as a good student and leader, is make sure I'm bringing those lessons back, and that I'm putting them into practice. That I'm actually, bringing value back to the house. And so we maintain that amazing relationship, and I come home and say, man, I learned this here and I learned this there, and he's like, I love that. That's amazing. And too many leaders, I think they're like, I don't know if I see worth in it unless it's titled my ministry, if it's not. But I love that, Pastor Josh he's a kingdom leader. If it's a win for the kingdom, it's a win for him,
Here's what's crazy is, years ago when I was on staff here and I was doing the leadership development, all of a sudden I'm getting invited to speak all around the country. And I went into Greg Greg is Josh's dad. You know? I go into his office and I said, Greg, I've been traveling a lot. I've been gone a lot. You know, if I need to dial it back, you know, I will. I understand. He said the same thing to me. Yeah. So Josh's dad, you know, it's like, no, you keep doing it, because every time you go, you're bringing value back to us and you're learning, and that's going to benefit us. So he led me with Openhanded, and I wouldn't be where I'm at today, you know, helping churches around the country and other countries to develop leaders if it wasn't for that open-handed leadership. Yeah. He wasn't threatened by it.
Right. Who are some other leaders that have made a huge impact on your life and who you aspire to be like?
Wow. Okay, that's who I aspire to be like.
Yeah. And why?
Yeah, I'll start with that one. Okay. One of my life verses is Psalm 78:72. It's talking about David, and it says, David shepherded them with a pure heart and guided them with skillful hands. Yeah. And so I look at that and go, all right, David was a leader who had leadership spirit and leadership skill. Yeah. And if you have leadership spirit but do not have leadership skill, people are going to follow you for a while because they go, man, Mac's a nice guy. I like Mac. He's nice. Yeah. But then they go, Mac's not taking us anywhere, you know, so I'm not going to follow him anymore. Yeah. If you have leadership skill but not leadership spirit, people go, man, I'm impressed by you. I love where you're taking us. This is great. But after a while, you feel like, oh, wait a minute, I'm just a cog in his machine. Yeah. So that's what made David a great leader. Wow. Is he had leadership spirit and leadership skill. Leadership spirit, Bill Johnson. Yeah. I've never met Bill, but you introduced me to him when you started, you know, traveling with Bethel. And so I started listening to some of his sermons. And the spirit of that man. Yeah. I've never seen anybody who wants to be more like Jesus than him. His humility, his passion and love for the word, the depth of some of the things he teaches rocks me. I was just telling Mom the other day, I can't listen to more than 8 minutes of a Bill Johnson sermon at a time. Yeah, right? Because it's too rich. And so I started...
Every sentence is like, what?
I start YouTubing Bill Johnson short sermon.
Yeah.
And you get these 8 minutes. So I pulled up an 8-minute one the other day. I could only listen to 2.5 minutes. Yeah. Because it was so rich. I'm like, I gotta sit in this. Yeah. I gotta think about this. I gotta meditate on this.
Hold on, let me stop you right there and say why I think it is because he has spent time with the Father. He has spent time with Jesus. Yeah. A lot of leaders are looking to other leaders who are only going to fall short of who Jesus is, his leadership. We look to other leaders and go, oh, I'll just imitate him. And there's something great about that. Let me imitate this great leader. Right. But if that takes precedence over your time with the Father, with Jesus, with the Holy Spirit, and learning Jesus' leadership, it's never going to be that dense. It's only going to ever be a little bit less than what that leader is. A faded photocopy. Yeah. So good. And so that's what I love about him is that, you know, like he's not doing a ripoff of some other pastor he heard a clip of on TikTok or whatever. He's like, no, he has been diving deep.
Direct download from God. Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, I see his passion to be like Jesus, and that's what I want. And, you know, 18 months ago, it was January of 2021, I said, oh, okay, I'm gonna do a study through the Gospels for 30 days. I think it was Gospel Mark. Before 30 days were up, the Holy Spirit said, no. I want you to do a 3-year study of the life of Christ. Wow. And so I'm 18 months into a 3-year study of the life of Christ. And he's not allowing me to do anything outside that. Because I'm like, at my age, I'm frustrated. I'm angry that I haven't studied Jesus more. If I could go back, all scripture is important, but I wish I would have done an intense study of the life of Christ at an earlier age so I could imitate him better. And when you study through the Gospels, there's throwback reflections. They're called remez. It's references. Sometimes it's a short little phrase, but it's a reference back to an Old Testament passage, which takes you through the vastness of the Old Testament as well. Yeah. But I that's why I say Bill, because he's a man who I see pursuing Jesus. I know a lot of men pursuing Jesus, but he pursues Jesus in a very unique way.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Beautiful.
How about you?
Man, it's such a hard question. I hate that I threw it out because now I got to answer it. I don't think there's anybody I want to be more like in this world than you. I truly mean that. But I don't think anyone listening wants to just hear us dote over each other the whole time.
Right.
But I really mean that because, I don't know anybody who goes after God harder than you do. Every time I'm over at the house, it's almost like, okay, I can't take anymore. You're always teaching me what you just learned. Like like if there's ever been a learner, it's you. And anyone that's ever been just so hungry for God, it's you. I've never seen it better modeled and lived out. And then there's aspects of just people along, my journey's very different than other people's. I've not been stuck in one house, one church the whole time. It's like God has given me aspects of different leaders as I've gone along the journey. Tasha Cobbs prophesied over me before anything happened. And she said, Brandon, I was at her conference, like the only white dude there. It was the most incredible experience. And this was when Maverick City was a new thing, not even titled yet. It was just writing songs. And I'd written a song with Tasha, and I go to her conference, and she got a word for me. And she said, Brandon, God has given you a voice for not a church, but the church. I began to talk to the Lord about that. And I'm like, what does that mean? And I heard the Lord say, pay attention where I'm taking you. I should say, pay attention to where I'm bringing you. And he brought me to the UK. And he had just taken me to Tasha's conference. That's right. Obviously like 99.9% African-American experience, right? Very gospel. Go to the UK, very spirit heavy. They're not afraid of the gifts of the Spirit. It was a wild experience. I mean, I could do a whole podcast on just my experience,
Yeah.
And then I'm raised in this church that is, charismatic with the seatbelt on really, really tight, And then I signed to this label really short after that's like madly charismatic and Pentecostal and I'm like just like talking to the Lord, and he's like, man, like my church, my children, they speak a different language in different places of the country or in different places in the world. And if you're going to be a voice for the church, I want you to understand their language.
Wow.
And that kind of changed so much to where I felt more of like a permission to, in every environment, learn something from somebody. Like pick up on why does a gospel church, why do they teach the tithe this way? And why do we teach it this way? That, like, I want to understand how we see these things differently,
So you're learning from it, not judging it.
Not judging it. No, I'm going, what I'm doing is I'm eating the meat and spitting out the bones. I'm going, what can I take from this? What do I love about this? How can I apply this to my life? What are some great leadership principles here that I can take? And it doesn't mean I have to be exactly like them, but if I can, and you've taught me that, if I can learn, take the gold from all these different people, you've taught me to be a great leader, you got to be a great learner. You challenged me at a young age to, and especially as my artistry started taking off, you said, man, 3 people you look up to every year, reach out to them and ask to meet with them, And even if one says yes, you were like, everybody loves talking about themselves. So just ask them if you can pick their brain and.
I remember your response. Dad.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to answer my call.
No way.
Nobody's going to respond to my email. I said, you'll be surprised. Reach out to your heroes. Some of them will say yes.
I was terrified to start,
but
I'll never forget when I got a call. And honestly, God's been so kind to send them my way to where I haven't had to ask. But there's been some that came both ways. But, David Leonard came into my life, who is a producer, songwriter, artist. And he wrote Greater You, Lord, which is probably one of the biggest Christian songs that will ever have been sung. Everybody and their mama tags it in a worship set, and one, I look up to him and so much because of the way he makes everything slow down, and he really looks at you and he asks great questions, and he's just like, I would take the brother aspect of his leadership and how, and I've heard that about Jesus, that people who are really close and feel like that, almost like there's this aspect of like, it might even sound weird, but like he's like a brother, like, right? Yeah. He sticks closer than a brother, right? Yeah. And that's something that David has really modeled for me, that I think I'm not amazing at. I'm so driven that I want to just get to the next thing, and I can often overlook people, you know? And he's forced me to slow down and value the relationship over the product. Because I came to him for product. Yeah. Like, let's make something together. And still to this day, no matter how much we make, he's always like, this conversation is priority. This is why we're here. This is why we're on this earth.
And don't you believe that brings better results?
1,000,000%.
I was teaching a group of business leaders up in Aiken, South Carolina. And it's a large company, and they took 30 of their next gen leaders. All of them were 32 and under.
Wow.
And put them through I got to do a leadership course with them. And when I walked up there, I said, all right, I'm 61. You guys are all basically under 30. Pretend I'm your boss. What do you want me to know about you? What do you want me to know about your generation?
Wow.
Well, all of their bosses are like 60s and 70s, right?
Yeah.
They unleashed. Wow. It was crazy. And the number one dominant thing that came out is they just want results. They don't care about the relationship. And what I've discovered, if you nurture the relationship, you're going to get better results. You got to be patient with the relationship.
Yeah.
And the results will come.
Because
it's better to do something together, you know?
It is. And man, if I could say anything, the joy of doing something together and watching that younger leader or older leader, whatever, but somebody who probably wouldn't have done that had you not pulled them into it and gone, let's do this together.
Yes.
Watching them accomplish that and it be a success and learning from it and going, what can we do different? Like all of that, there is a joy in that.
Yeah.
That will always beat writing the song by yourself.
Yeah.
Leading the thing by yourself.
Yeah.
There is no joy like raising somebody else up and seeing them like doing something together. Yeah. Like what's the saying? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I'm a product of that. Like so much, like, man, people have spent an annoyingly long amounts of time with me, listening to my stuff, and shaping me and molding me. Yeah. And I think one of the hard parts about bringing people along with you is that it's just messy and it takes time.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to, as a leader, learn to value slowing it down, getting in the mess, and putting the results aside, and caring more about the person than the product, and seeing what God does there.
Yeah. And it's not relationship over results. It's not results over relationship. It's the merging of the two together. It's finding a coupling together is what makes it strong.
Yeah.
Because there are some that value relationships so much that they don't get results.
That's true. Yeah.
And so I think there's a harmony that has to be found there.
Yeah.
That brings God joy.
Yeah.
Because obviously he cares about results.
Yeah.
But he also modeled relationships very strongly.
There's leaders I've learned from that they have such an anointing and such a skill, and the motivation is just not there.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've unfortunately learned from some leaders, that how not to do it, and that's okay.
So I don't know if you remember this. All right. Well, I know you remember this. You were at Sonic. You were working for Sonic, and your manager.
Why you gotta tell the people that? My first job ever.
Your first job ever. Your manager was terrible. Oh. You come home after a week and you said, "Hey, Dad, I want to quit. I want to quit Sonic. It's terrible." And you gave me a long list of reasons why. And I looked at you and I said, oh yeah, that's bad. That's bad. Oh yeah, nobody should be able to have to work under those conditions, and that's horrible. That's a bad leader. But you're not allowed to quit.
Yeah.
I said, you have to work there 3 months, then you're allowed to quit. But I want you to learn what it's like to work for a bad leader.
Yeah.
Because that's going to teach you so much.
Yeah.
And you committed to that. You didn't stay 3 months.
Yeah.
Because of his bad leadership.
Yeah.
You got fired.
I got fired.
He sent another kid in to fire you.
Yo, a 15-year-old kid calls me on the phone, and I think Jamal was his name. And I pick up the phone. I'm like, hey, he's like, hey, it's Jamal. And I'm like, oh, hey, what's up, bro? And he's like, hey, yeah, Tom wanted me to let you know, man, you fired. And I was like, wait, what, is this a joke? Or are you like serious? He's like, nah, man, like, yeah, you fired. And I was like, okay, so, all right. Later, bro. You know,
that's hilarious.
I had a 15-year-old call me and fire me.
So here's a question I've been wrestling with recently. It's, what's it like to work for me? What's it like to be led by me?
Yeah.
I think that's a question more people need to ask.
Yeah.
And really look in the mirror and be honest with. And so that question led me, I put this on my Instagram the other day. 6 things I want my team to say about me. I'm just going to read it.
Beautiful.
Because I work for you, I have a closer relationship with God. Because I work with you, I'm constantly being challenged and growing in my leadership skills. Because I work for you, I get to operate in my areas of strength. Because I work for you, I feel I'm a part of something bigger than myself. Because I work for you, I know my voice is heard, understood, and valued. Because I work for you, I'm better able to maintain a work-life balance that benefits my family.
Wow.
That's what I want my team to say about me.
Wow.
And I think sometimes leaders need to define, we just accept the leader we are versus continuing to grow into the leader God wants us to be. You know, Blaze, your son Blaze and I were sitting watching the Chiefs game yesterday. He came over, and so we're sitting there watching the Chiefs game, and the commentator said, Patrick Mahomes is amazing. You know, he's reached the pinnacle of his career. And he said, but here's the thing that makes Patrick Mahomes so great. He's constantly striving to learn and get better. I said, hey, Blaze, did you hear that?
Yeah.
Did you hear that? Because he's like, Pop's son will be in the NFL one day.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I'm like, well, that's the type of spirit you have to have. But if leaders would just commit themselves to continually learn and take them, because we're always looking, I think it's so easy as a leader, and I've done this so many times, as a leader, you begin to look at your team's productivity, you look at their results, you look at their output, and you get so focused on what's wrong or what's not being done that you take your eyes off of how am I leading them. And I've discovered that many times when something's going wrong, I go, oh, wait a minute, back it up.
Yeah.
Well, I could have done something to prevent that.
Yeah.
There's a guy who wrote a book, Fernand Fuentes, I think is his name. And it's like 18 reasons why employees don't do what they're supposed to do and what to do about it. And so I saw the book in Barnes & Noble's years ago. I didn't buy it because you don't have to buy it. I just went through the table of contents and looked at the 18 reasons. And when you read through the 18 reasons, over half of them you go, well, that would be my fault. That would be my fault. That would be my
right.
So there are things I can do. And so I always tell leaders, you know, stop focusing on what you can get out of your team.
Come on.
Start focusing on what you can put into your team.
Wow.
If you want more out of your team, put more into your team.
Yeah.
That's the type of leader I want to be.
Wow.
Let me ask you this. If there were 3 traits that you would challenge a young leader in their 20s to develop, to really become the leader God wants them to be, what 3 traits would you tell them to focus on first?
Yeah. Wow.
I'm asking that question. I'm going, oh, that's a tough question.
It is a tough question. I think, like I said earlier, it's so easy to there's no teacher like Jesus. And so it's so easy just to get your next little leadership fix from Instagram. That I would say I would really encourage a young leader to just fall in love with Jesus.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's what I'm still working on.
Yeah.
I love them.
Hey, me too.
I love them.
Me too.
But I want to hunger. I want to be on fire and just be consuming the word, devouring it. And if you do that, I can't imagine the places that God will take you, right? I mean, everything's there. Everything that we need is in that book.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know that we really believe that. You know, I don't sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't operate as if I believe that.
Yeah.
I go to but every other source is a counterfeit to what, or it's secondhand to what is in that word. And I want to, so I would encourage young leaders to learn from him first.
Something, I told you 18 months ago, God challenged me to just spend 3 years just studying the life of Christ. And so I've laid his life out chronologically and just systematically going through his life. And I heard a guy talking about Bible study the other day, and he put it this way, and I love this. He said, so many of us water ski on top the surface of God's word. I want to go scuba diving.
Yes.
And so, over the past 18 months, just studying the Jewish culture, the Jewishness of Jesus, the culture, the geography, holy moly.
Yeah.
The history, the customs. It's scuba diving down into Jesus' world where I'm going, I didn't understand this about you. I'm sorry. That's why I said earlier, I'm angry that I didn't do this earlier.
Yeah.
Because it's like I'm submerging in the depth of who he is.
Yeah.
And I'm not pretending to have any depth whatsoever yet. I just feel like I'm just 10 feet under. But I'm looking down going, there's a lot of depth that I have not covered yet that I'm hungry to go after.
Yeah.
Scared to go after.
Yeah.
Excited to go after.
Yeah.
And but I love that as your first thing.
Yeah, and I think similarly, I mean, probably all my answers are going to have to do with just learning, being an aggressive learner. But speaking from personal experience, I would say one of the things I value most now is exposure to different experiences, environments, and cultures.
Yes.
My life drastically changed when I started walking into different rooms.
Yeah.
It can become dangerous if the ministry that you're in or wherever you're leading, serving, if that's the bubble you stay in and think that like you can, be a relevant leader and be like, you're mistaken. There is so much to learn outside of your bubble, your church. Like I'm just gonna say it. Like, yes, God can bring other people to your church to learn from, and you can learn a lot in one house.
Yeah.
But the things I've learned in different cultures and different leaders around the world, invest in your leadership. Get skin in the game. Like, I remember you told me we all had no money. Like no money, and mom forced you to spend $500 on a John Maxwell cassette tape. And that's what in some of these talks I've referred to as hearing his voice on a cassette tape. It's these cassette tapes that you devoured over and over and over again. I don't know how many times you listened to all of those tapes, right?
Dozens, yeah.
And
I listened to 100 audio tapes in 30 days.
That's insane.
Yeah.
And you are willing to spend about all the money you had to do this, make an investment. And I think like we want it cheap and we want it quick nowadays. And I think that some of those trips I made to Atlanta when Brittany and I were paycheck to paycheck to go invest in my songwriting gift and to get around leaders that never would have been around, rub shoulders with here in Charleston. But getting to Atlanta and experiencing different atmospheres of worship and leadership and writing and all of that has completely like changed my life. And I would say look for opportunities, even like pay for, like invest in your gift, invest in your leadership. And even if they're across the country, start working towards, ask them, can I get coffee with you? Maybe it's baby steps, start small. Is there somebody on the other side of town, that you just need to be like, I wonder how that church operates and what the kind of leader they're like. Let me just get coffee with them. but get outside your circle.
I call it walking with giants. That's what you were referring to earlier. And, every year, identify 2 or 3 giants. Write down 10 to 15 questions. Ask them for an hour. Ask the questions and shut up.
Yeah.
Ask the questions and listen. So many times when we're in our environment, we're trying to impress that person because we know they're bigger than us. You know? And instead of learn from them. But that investing in your own growth, it reminds me of Proverbs 2. Is pursue wisdom like it's silver and gold.
Yeah.
It's a sacrifice to go after that.
Yeah.
But I want to go back to the exposure thing for a minute, because I think that's another big one that we overlook so many times. When I was doing church planting and we would take guys through church planting assessment, I would notice a lot of times these guys had very limited exposure. They'd been in one denomination, lived in one state, gone to one seminary and been locked into that culture.
Right.
And a lot of times I'd say, hey, you're not passing because we want you to go get more exposure. And that's threatening. It's scary.
Yeah.
It feels dangerous, but it's the very thing Jesus did to his disciples.
Exactly.
So in Luke 6, after he invited the 12 into leadership, the first field trip they did, he gets in a boat and they start going across the Sea of Galilee. And they're like, where are we going, Jesus? He said, oh, you'll see, And they're thinking, you're heading towards Decapolis. A good Jew doesn't go over there. That's like Las Vegas of their times, you know. And they're rowing that direction. And they're thinking, Jesus, we've heard horror stories about this place. We should not be going there. A good Jew doesn't go there. And he pulls up on the shore. And what happens? A naked, bleeding man comes running, screaming out of the tombstones, down the hill, screaming at them. And Luke records it and says, and Jesus got out of the boat. Doesn't say the disciples. They're sitting in a boat going, hey, Peter, get these rows ready, man. We're going to get out of here.
Let him take care of this.
Yeah, but he's exposing them to something they would not be exposed at in their culture.
On the other side,
on the other side. And then they watch him have a conversation with 1,000 demons in this man. And next thing you know, the man is clothed. How's he clothed? They're out in the middle of nowhere. Jesus probably took his outer garment and wrapped that man in it. The man is now in his right mind. He's clothed. And the disciples are going, you've got to be kidding me. And then people show up and they're like marveling at what's going on. And the disciples are just taking all this in. They're brand new leaders. First field trip. They're blown away. Jesus is exposing them to something that's stretching their thinking. And we got to do more of that. And when it was all over with, they got in a boat and went back over. The whole reason they went over.
Wow.
There was only one reason they went over. And I love it too, because the man said, Jesus, can I get in the boat and go with you? And Jesus said, no, you can't. I want you to stay and tell your story.
Wow.
Stay and tell your story. Next time Jesus went back in that area, a small group showed up and said, hey, Jesus, this man's blind. Can you heal him? Next time Jesus showed up in that area, 4,000 people showed up to listen to him teach. Where'd they come from? Came from that man.
Wow.
And each time he went back, the disciples were going, whoa.
Wow.
That dude's one powerful evangelist.
Yeah.
Started a small group and ended up with a crowd.
Wow.
But it's exposure.
This kind of links me to what I would say my last thing I would encourage people to do, which I'll say it and then I'll kind of say why. A young leader, I would encourage them to dream.
Oh, yeah.
And it sounds pretty obvious, but I think that I just run into too many young guys and girls, young leaders, and it's like they've already just been so discouraged to dream bigger. My boss here for a season, Tara Banks, she would always say, don't be afraid to dream a little bigger, darling. And when I think about dreams, I think about Tony Brown, who's been leading this Maverick City music thing, the founder of it. That man dreams more than, which ironic because he doesn't sleep much because he's such a workhorse. I mean, but he has so many dreams. And one of his dreams, talking about exposure, led me inside of a prison. And we made a record, not in one day, popping in to just say we record it in the prison. We spent a week in prison, the majority of every single day, like 9 o'clock till 6 o'clock or something like that. Spent time with these men, learned from them, loved on them. They changed our lives.
Wow.
If it wasn't for Tony's dream, I don't know that I could say that would be an opportunity I would have had, or I would have pursued.
Yeah.
And the beautiful thing about doing leadership with other people around you is you get caught up in their dreams and you get to be a part of it, your fingerprints on it. You get to be a part of things that you never would have thought possible when you're around other people and you're sharpening each other and you're encouraging and pushing each other forward. And I got caught in the wake of a Tony dream that exposed me to something. And now the most beautiful thing is, because of that exposure and loving on those guys, because we did that, guys have since gotten out of prison, been released, and they're starting their dreams of hosting other guys who are fresh out of jail, getting them rehabilitated into society, getting jobs and all that kind of stuff. And we even brought some of those guys on the tour with us since the time we recorded till when we were out there. And it just, that just kind of made me think of that, like what, just terrifying, going to a place I've never been before, have no idea what it's really going to be like, could be really rough, surprisingly. And of course, they were amazing people. Of course they are.
Yeah.
What was so beautiful is man, I sensed the call of God on so many of their lives, but you just have these preconceived ideas, of what it's going to be like. Yeah. And man, it came out those 6 days, they were my brothers,
Yeah.
And now to see them coming out and pursuing their dreams, and all because this, Tony had a dream to do a record in a prison and love on these guys. And so, yeah.
Dreamers tend to give birth to dreamers.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to answer the question 3 things, but I'm going to do it instead of for young leader. I'm going to do it for old guys.
Love it.
The old guys.
Yeah.
First, get comfortable with failure. Get comfortable with failure. I had a young guy, I was speaking at a conference. Young 24-year-old stood up and said, "I love everything you're saying, man. I want to grow like that. But I'm in a church or a culture where everybody's a lot older than me, and they're telling me I have to earn my stripes and that I got to wait my turn." And I looked at him and I said, "I am so sorry. On behalf of my generation, I'm so sorry that they're doing this to you. You should be set free. You should be failing.
Yeah.
You should be failing all over the place under a safe place.
Yeah.
I remember Ernest. I mentored Ernest, who mentored you. And I was talking to Ernest one day, and he was wrestling with something about doing something. I said, "Do it." He said, "It's awful risky." I said, "I don't care. You shared it with me. If it fails, I'll take the blame. If it succeeds, you get the credit. But I want you to do this. Take that chance." I think we got to get more comfortable with failure. Second thing I would say for older guys is, when you enter into a relationship, a development relationship with a young leader, ask them to mentor you. Mentoring is a 2-way relationship.
Wow.
Actually, mentor is a 3-way relationship. It's what God tells me about you. But it should also come back to me. I'm mentoring a young guy right now, and every time we sit down together, I'm learning so much from him. And I tell him that. And I want to, and first time we ever sat down, I said, "Hey, I want this to be a co-learning relationship."
Yeah.
And then the third thing I would say, have a spirit worth catching.
Oh man, I love that.
Have a spirit worth catching. And if the Holy Spirit isn't producing the fruit of the Spirit in me, I'm not going to have a spirit worth catching.
Wow.
And so I believe Jesus was so attractive. Because he was saying things nobody else was saying. He was doing things nobody else was saying. You look at his first miracle, all right? His first miracle, the wedding at Cana.
Yeah.
This blows me away. Here, this bridegroom is supposed to be the one that spends a year or two getting a house ready for his wife, preparing for that wedding day, making sure there's enough wine and food for the 1 week wedding celebration, and it runs short.
Yeah.
You know? And Jesus' mom says, hey, you got to do something about this. And so he says, all right, fill these 6 stone pots with water. And he turns the water into wine. And there's just so much symbolism in this. It's insane. But here's the thing I'm getting to. At the end of that passage in John, it says Jesus showed his glory.
Mm-hmm.
He demonstrated his glory. That's no small thing. He was demonstrating. This is all throwback to the messianic banquet that everybody was anticipating. It was all a foreshadowing of all this. And Jesus turns the water into wine. He performs this incredible miracle that saves this guy's tail end, you know, keeps the party going and all that. Who knew about it? The servants and his disciples and his mom. He's establishing a culture right there with his key leaders, what would be his key leaders. They weren't at that point. They were just followers.
Wow.
But he's saying, hey, look, I'm going to involve the servants in this miracle because my ministry is all about servanthood. I'm not going to make a big deal out of this and let everybody know. You know, the host of this wedding, the groom himself, he doesn't have to know because it's about humility.
Yeah.
I'm taking these stone water pots, which are ritual purification pots, fill them with wine, which is a symbol of joy because you're no longer going to need those ritual purification because all that's going to be over with.
Dang.
I'm filling it with my blood, and it's an abundance of grace that he demonstrated towards that bridegroom, and that bridegroom may not even known how it happened.
Yeah, right.
You know? And I was telling Mom about this the other day. I was like, that guy's a loser. He was a loser. Jesus rescued his sorry butt.
Yeah.
He should have been prepared, but he wasn't.
Yeah.
Mom's like, oh, you're being too harsh on him. But he's me.
Yeah.
He is me.
Wow.
I fall short.
Wow.
I've not done all the preparation.
Dang.
And Jesus says, you know what? I'm going to rescue your sorry butt, Mac. You don't deserve it. You're making a mess of this banquet.
Yeah.
Because you're not good enough. So I will step in. Jesus steps into the responsibility of the bridegroom.
Wow.
In that moment, and fills the ritual pots with water, which turns them into wine, which symbolizes joy, an abundance of grace on that bridegroom, an abundance of joy for all those who participated. But he did it with humility and quietness, and he did it with the servants were the only ones that do, and the disciples. And they were like, whoa.
Wow.
And that blows me away. So he, right from the beginning of his ministry, he's creating a culture. And that's what we have to do as leaders. What type of, as generational leaders, I got to be asking the question, not just what results what do I want to accomplish with my life? What results do I want to get? No. What culture am I creating for the team that God is bringing around me so we can do something that only God can do in us and through us? And let's do it together. And man, I think if we would take that approach to leadership, it's going to be more fun. And we're going to see God work, not just the results of our work.
Beautiful.